Big Daddy Duke is finally here, and he does exactly what we thought he would do. And that's a good thing.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we finally got the very first reveals of Clan Selection Plus Volume 1. And of course we start off with none other than Gold Paladin, Spectral Duke Dragon. So without further ado, let's jump straight into those cards themselves, and at the end of it we talk about some very exciting new announcements, because overdress information might be sooner than we expect. But with that said, let's jump straight into these new Gold Paladin cards, and we're going to start it with a new grade 1 for the Spectral Duke deck, and that is this grade 1 Scout of Darkness Vortimer. And its abilities are auto and Vanguard Circle. When placed, look at the 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 1 Spectral Duke Dragon or Black Dragon Knight Vortimer from among them, and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So this is the generic Vanguard skill that we've seen on all these new grade 1s that allow you to search a specific grade 2 and the grade 3 of that archetype or that playstyle, which is a nice increase in consistency. But then its unique ability, and the reason why it's very interesting, is auto. When retired from the rearguard circle by your card's ability cost, put this card into your soul, and one of your vanguards gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So that already suggests that Spectral Duke is going to retire her own stuff, and it can give an additional 5k power, so it already hints to the original resend capabilities that the original had. So it's very nice that Vortimer does this, and as soon as it goes towards the soul, it also allows you to get some resources if you're relying on more soul blasting skills. Now with that grade 1, let's discuss the grade 2, which is of course Black Dragon Knight Vortimer. And its abilities are pretty interesting because its first skill is Continuance of Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. If you have a Scout of Darkness Vortimer in your soul, this unit gets power plus 1k. So it basically turns into a 10k unit, which is a force number. So if you could ride to grade 1 and then ride to grade 2, it doesn't matter if you went second against force, because it still hits without needing the booster. And even on the rearguard circle, it can be a nice beater. And as soon as it continues during both players' turns, it can also have some defensive capability if your opponent wants to rush you back, but they're an X or Protect line and they cannot hit into it if it's on the rearguard circle, so that's a nice addition. But then its other abilities are auto. When retired from the rearguard circle by your card's ability cost, put this card into your soul and counter charge 1. So both the grade 1s, when they get retired, can put themselves into the soul, and the grade 1 can give your Vanguard an additional 5k power. This is basically a counter charger, which is really nice, as we're going to see with Spectral Duke, as that allows the ability to become somewhat costless. But then it also has another ability, which is auto. When rode upon by Spectral Duke Dragon, look at the 5 cards from the top of your deck, call up the 2 cards from among them to the rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. So this basically allows you to get a free +2, which you're going to need with Spectral Duke Dragon to make its ability useful and actually do something without minusing yourself all too hard. So it's a really nice addition to have that, and in addition with its first ability, which makes it a potential 10k Vanguard unit, makes it a pretty desirable right target in your early game. So a pretty nice card overall. But then we get to the Big Daddy himself, which is Spectral Duke Dragon, and its abilities are Continuous of Vanguard Circle. If you have Black Dragon Knight Vortimer in your soul, this unit gets power plus 1k, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets critical plus 1. So it's important, you can only get that critical if the grade 2 is in your soul and your opponent is grade 3. If you don't have the grade 2 in your soul, but your opponent is grade 3, you don't get the extra critical. Now, this is actually pretty interesting because it turns itself into a 13k double crit unit, which is somewhat on par on all the other force restanders we have seen so far, which can all get inherently an extra critical. A good example is of course the previous Royal Paladin support card, that's Sanctuary Guard Dragon. It basically turns itself into a Sanctuary Guard to some extent, which is a nice flavor to the card itself. But then we also have a second ability, which is Auto Vanguard Circle. Once a turn, at the end of the battle it attacked, cost counter plus 1, and retire 3 rearguards. Stand this unit and it gets drive -1 until the end of turn. If your damage zone has 4 or more cards, so aka limit break 4, it gets drive plus 1 instead of drive -1. So the interesting thing here is that it actually gains an additional drive instead of losing one, so you go up in card advantage by doing this particular skill. But one thing to keep in mind, this extra drive is something you need to not minusing yourself pretty damn hard with this restand skill, because you need to retire 3 rear guards. So you go -3, and then you get 3 drive checks in total. So that's effectively, you go -2 in overall card advantage, because usually when you have a twin drive, you go +2. In this case, you break even, so you lose those 2 additional cards. So that extra +1 drive check on the second attack is needed to basically turn the restand into an overall wash, as you still get a pseudo +2 on your overall drive checks. So if this card is at full power, you have 4 damage, it's basically a restander that doesn't minus you on card advantage, which isn't all that amazing, as we've seen this with other clans that can already do this without needing to jump through all these awkward hoops. Now that said, the cost of Spectral Duke, that you need to retire your own units, can actually be really useful with the grade 1 and grade 2, because keep in mind, you need to retire the grade 1 and grade 2 to put them into the soul. And you need the grade 2 in your soul for his continuous effect to get the extra 1k power and critical, which is continuous during both players' turns, so you get that 13k base during your opponent's turn as well, which can be nice for defensive options. But at the same time, you need the grade 1 into your soul for the grade 2 to be a 10k unit on the rearguard circle. So that allows it to be a better beater or defensive unit on the field itself. So there's an inherent synergy with the skill with the grade 1 and grade 2, that even in the case that you cannot write the correct right chain, you still can get their full effect in the overall grand scheme of things. Now, so far what we've seen for Spectral Duke, I think it's an okay design and okay build that we've had. It's basically a homage to the original right chain, as all these cards, these 2 vortimers as well as Spectral Duke Dragon, they interact very similar to the original counterpart way at the back at the beginning, because they have the right chain effect, they have the +1 power onto the Vanguard circle or the field, so it's reminiscent of that. We have the limit break skill as well as the self-retire aspect that is pretty unique. Now also the fact that the grade 2 becomes a 10k unit and Spectral Duke becomes a 13k Vanguard unit is also pretty interesting in the V series, because Spectral Duke Dragon is somewhat of a Shadow Paladin card in Gold Paladin, and since they are 4s and this is Axel, turning those numbers up with 1k effectively gives you access to those 4s numbers, which is pretty interesting in the design scope of things. But overall, I think it's a nice little archetype that you can play, but I don't think it's going to be very powerful, and it's very likely that we're not going to see any future support whatsoever, because these cards, both vortimer cards as well as Spectral Duke Dragon, revolve around self-retire, and no other Gold Paladin card does this, so there are no actual direct support cards that they can utilize, and Gold Paladin will probably never get any further support than this, which is a sad thing to think about, but it's a very interesting restander in Gold Paladin. And don't forget, except for the critical, everything else doesn't care what your opponent's grade is. So you can go into Spectral Duke Dragon and gain the full effect and just restand and do that all the power play while your opponent's still at grade 2. And yes, you might not get the extra drive check, so you're gonna minus yourself quite hard, but if you could write from the grade 2, you still get those 2 extra superior calls to the field, so that -2 is somewhat negated by the extra 2 units that you get. So keep that in mind with the interaction between the grade 2 and the grade 3, but if you do not get that 3+2 of the grade 2 vortimer, then Spectral Duke Dragon might not be worth it if you're not at 4 damage, so be careful when utilizing this particular card. But overall, pretty interesting. Now, with those new Gold Paladin cards discussed, let's go into the big announcement, or let's say the big announcement of an announcement, as Bushiroad announced that their product livestream announcements are going to happen on January the 18th and the 19th. And for us Vanguard players, the second day is the more important one, because that one is completely dedicated to Vanguard. So it's very likely that we're going to see a lot of new information about upcoming sets, and maybe the new mechanics, maybe some extra cards for Clan Selection Plus Volume 1 or 2, but more importantly, most definitely or very likely, overdress information. So it's going to be a very exciting day for anybody in the community as well as our content creators. But another interesting thing they revealed were new release dates for TCG products. And as you see on this image, this is quite interesting because we see 3 sets basically back to back. We have one on March the 25th, we have one on April the 3rd, and on April the 17th. So that's actually quite back to back to back. Now, what I suspect is that this is the start of the new Overdress era, and maybe the first one are some trial decks, then the second one might be something like a Fighters Collection, where every clan gets access to this new mechanic if Overdress is going to introduce a new mechanic, and then maybe the 17th is going to be the very first actual main booster set, or just the first set of the new Overdress era. It's pure speculation. We have no clue. This is just what we've got given to us, and this is all the information that we got. So on January the 19th, we're going to get the new product live stream where we're going to get a lot of new information. And then the only thing that is confirmed, that on these 3 dates, there is going to be a release of some TCG product. What type of product that's going to be, no clue. But with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new reveals for Gold Paladin. Are you excited for Spectral Duke Dragon, or were you expecting a bit more? But at the same time, what's your thoughts on the upcoming reveal live stream? And are you excited for what's possibly going to happen for Vanguard in 2021? As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Timeleap, and I see you guys in the next one!